the co-founder and chairman of the board, Mr. Dave Liniger.
Good morning. I usually have my service dog with me, Max, and he's about 110-pound, beautiful attack German Shepherd. When I got out of the hospital, I was a quadriplegic for almost a year, and the Denver SWAT team found him in Frankfurt. And he's almost never been more than a foot away from me for almost 5 years, one of the greatest gifts of my life. But he is on SWAT duty today. He's gone out to bite some bad guys. So he likes that, by the way. And yet everybody sees him in the class or on the stage in Las Vegas, and he just lays at my feet and is very calm, walks through the audience without a leash or anything like that. Just the most remarkable animal in the world. So it's been my opportunity for 45 years to come to almost the opening day of every training class that we've had in the history of the company. And it's really a fun occurrence for us here at headquarters. We like being with our membership. It's a great job, but sometimes when you're doing nothing but answering email and mail and doing the, boring things, you miss what it's like to be in the field and see where the real excitement is. When we do our conventions, we end up taking probably 150 of the 300 people in the company, and the 150 that don't get to go are very distraught and very disappointed. They just enjoy it, the 12-hour days, the excitement of being around superstars all the time. So I'd like to kind of share with you for about 20, 25 minutes some of the lessons that we've learned on how to be a successful franchisee. And throughout the week, you're going to have several of our instructors are going to talk to you about brand and products and services and approved suppliers and brand name awareness and all that. And that's all very important because it helps you recruit. But in actuality, I like to tease them that if you can figure out what I'm talking about for the next 20 minutes, you could go ahead and go home and be successful. You wouldn't have to sit through 4.5 days of this. So here's the whole concept of what we've learned from hundreds of thousands of people in the 45 years of RE/MAX. The single purpose of a broker, owner, manager, leader of a RE/MAX office is very simple. It is to create an environment where your people can be as successful as they want to be. That's it. It's to create an environment where they can be as successful as they want to be, not as successful as you want them to be. And we'll give you some proof positive of that over the next couple of days based on surveys that we have done of the agents. We have approximately 29% of our agents that make less than $50,000 a year, but give us a 9 or 10 when it comes to ranking us as to the value of the company. We have 10,000 agents in the United States right now that are 65 years of age or older. They're not about to work as hard as they did 20 years ago. We have agents today that are, aging. They're quite happy to make $50,000 a year. They're just not going to work 7 days a week, whereas maybe 20 years ago, they made $150,000 or $200,000 a year. You just don't know what turns an agent on, but it's the environment they're in that dictates whether they're satisfied or not. I like to tell the story of two of my vice presidents, who happen to be very close friends of mine, and Kelly was young, beautiful, incredibly talented, very, very smart, and came up through the ranks very fast with us. Adam was probably the best employee I've hired in my life. Adam is now the CEO of the company. And they both were working in the regions. And so both had ended up divorced, as happens often. And somewhere along the line became romantically engaged and decided to get married. And it was fine with me, and I was actually honored to give the bride away. So about a year after they got married, she came in and looked at me in my office and said, "Can we talk?" And I said, "Sure." And she sat down and she started tearing up and crying. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, damn it, you're quitting." And she said, "Yes, I am. I love my job. I love working for you. I need to quit." And I said, "Why?" And she says, "Look, I've got 2 children by a previous marriage, and I'm traveling 14 weeks a year for you. Adam's got a child by a previous marriage, and he's traveling 14 weeks a year. And now that we're married and a family and he's adopted my children, it's very tough on us to travel that heavily." Makes logical sense to me. So I said, "Well, of course, that's fine." And I said, "What are you going to do?" And she says, "I'm going to become a real estate agent." And she said, "I've been working with him for 10 years. I love the business, and I could be a stay-at-home mom." And so the end result is she is very talented, ends up that she can make $100,000 a year by April. And if she wanted, she could make $250,000, $500,000. She could have a team. She could have all these things. But in her lifestyle, that isn't what she wants to do. She wants to be able to spend the summer with the children, who are all teenagers, and have vacation time and have time to travel with Adam to RE/MAX conventions and meetings and their vacations. And so she works very, very hard while the kids are in school. And then she really cherry picks her deals to where I just don't need that much business, got the income I want, we got the lifestyle we want. And so when I started the company, I really had this thought that, I want everybody in the office to be a superstar. They ought to all make $100,000, and somebody is the bottom of the list, get rid of them and get somebody in that wants to make $200,000 a year. That isn't the way it works. Absolutely is not the way it works. So the question is, what is this environment? The environment that we work on in a RE/MAX office consists of 5 separate distinctive products, if you will. The first part is the office, the space, the location, the facilities. It used to be, you really need to be on Main Street and bricks and mortar and a location people could find very easily. It's not important anymore. Everybody's got GPS, and we have as many offices that are in professional office buildings like this that are not on the Main Street. Now, perhaps if you're on a beach or in the mountain community and it's a resort, yeah, it has to be. But in metropolitan areas, the location just is not that important. However, the facility is. For instance, do you have adequate parking, and is the parking lot safe? 65% of the U.S. RE/MAX agents are women. And often we're in the office before it's sunup and often after sundown. And so is it well lit? Is it adequate? Can it be seen easily from the building to where people have a sense of security? The building itself, is it modern? You really can't afford a Taj Mahal when you first open. That kind of comes second, third generation of offices that you're in. But is it clean? Are the carpets in good repair? Is it bright and cheerful and well painted or whatever? How about the equipment? Is it modern? Does it work? Do you have the correct printing presses and copy machines and that type of thing? The one thing you'll find out in the real estate business is people will not step out of a really nice office and work in a dump. They just won't. You've got to be at least average to where people feel good about it. Second part, of course, of the environment are the people. And 2 sets of people. You have your administrative staff, and you've got the salespeople. I get in trouble sometimes because I talk about age. I'm 72. I've been around for a long time. I'm as enthusiastic and excited when I come in here in the morning as I was when I was 27. That's not true for a lot of people. I've got 3 assistants that have been working with me for years. 2 of them are in their 60s, one's late 50s. They have a sparkle in their eye, they're cheerful, they're happy, they're fun to be around, they're enthusiastic, or whatever. By the same token, we've got 25-year-old single moms that are already burnt out and are sick and tired of their life and are angry and frustrated with where they're at. The agents have such a stressful job that coming into an office where the administrative staff is not supportive and cheerful and happy is a miserable place to be. So your staff is so important to the agents. But the agents themselves, all of us have a bad day. But some people are perpetually negative about everything. And if you have somebody that's negative about everything, they bring the office down. If you have a prima donna, say a top producing woman that does $20 million a year, and she's your #1 agent, but she shoves herself around and lords over the entire office, that turns people off. They'll keep people from joining you. If you have some young buck that hasn't grown up yet, and he's harassing the women, asking for dates, makes it uncomfortable to be in an environment like that, he's going to turn the office off. And so what you want is a good sales force that gets along with each other, supports each other, and are team players. The third part of your environment is the competitive advantages of the individual office. In Denver, we probably have about 50 offices, 40% market share, a couple thousand agents. Some of our offices, the majority of them are large, 80, 100, 120 people. But we do have some boutique offices in little areas of the town that are quite unusual and might only have 12 agents. So each office has a different personality. One of the things in my life is I'm in lots of other businesses, and in the metro area, I own 4 motorcycle shops. In our motorcycle shops, we consider our customer base our tribe. And you can actually figure this out. It works the same way with a real estate office. So my Harley dealerships, I've got 2 of them, and Harley buyers are kind of unique. They all think they're badasses. You know, they want a loud bike. They want to act like that they're one of the Hells Angels. They're spirited and they're independent, and they're the last warriors of the world. And the thing that's funny is, most of them are business people, lawyers, doctors. I mean, they've never been in a fist fight in their life. Now, if you talk to the people that work in my dealership, they're the real deal. They're tattooed from here to here and long hair and beards, and you know, they are free spirits. And when I talk to them about how badass our customers think they all have to laugh with me and say, well, they're really not. It's the game they're playing. It's the image they're playing. But if you go over to the BMW dealership, entirely different. These guys are so preppy, and when they come in, they've studied our bikes on the internet so much, they know more than my sales force do. And so they've nothing at all like that. They're a separate tribe, if you will. Real estate offices are the same way. They actually become a tribe. Every real estate office picks up a unique culture and a unique personality, if you will. And so that personality and that culture will attract other people that want a similar culture, if you will. Each office has its own advantages. Some of them, the manager coaches and works very hard, does business planning and that sort of thing. Some of them, the manager's kind of hands off, whatever. The fourth factor is the environment created by the network. So the environment that the agents in Denver have is quite different, for instance, than the environment we have in New York. Denver, we were founded here, got a huge market share, #1 within 5 years of starting the company. And so a tremendous amount of advertising, a lot of market share, a lot of events, whatever. New York was a failure when we sold it. The regional owner paid no attention to it. Contracts were very loosely written at the time. I couldn't get rid of them. And finally, they just never got any place. Never even got 2% of the agents in the state. Not much brand, not much market share. End result, managed to buy it out 2 years ago. We've sold about 15 or 20 franchises. It is becoming very exciting. There's a lot of things happening. And so there's this personality. So if you add up the first 4 factors of the 5 factors, they're really important, as you can see. But the 5th factor is more important than the other 4 put together. And it really comes down to the leader of the office. It's you. People sitting in this room. You are so vastly different from each other, it's actually scary. You look around at this crowd, we have young people and old people. We've got multicultural people, we got men and women. There's the tremendous difference in personality, yet all these different personalities, to a certain degree, have achieved incredible success in RE/MAX. And so it's you that sets the stage of whether the office will be successful or not. We do a survey every year, actually several of them, and one of the questions we keep asking year after year is, where do you want to get your training, your self-development? How do you want to grow? And then we say you can fill in as many as you want. And so do you want to learn from somebody like Brian Buffini, Irish accent, well-rehearsed, lots of items of value, a fabulous day spent with Brian is awesome. Or do you want to go to a convention, or do you want to take a CRB or CRS course? Do you want DVDs? Do you want to go to the quarterly sales meeting of RE/MAX? Or do you want to learn from your manager, or whatever? Number one source, every year, 60-some people, 60-some% say they want to get their training from their manager. That amazing? And most of us are not near the charisma of somebody like a Brian Buffini or a Ferry or any of these people. And that frustrated me for a long time. I couldn't figure out, well, what the hell, how does that work? But I can kind of put it, I think, to you in a funny way, to the women in the room here. Me being a man, there's 2 things that I've never had to do in my life. And one of them is read a manual. Just men don't have to read manuals. I've got 40-some automobiles, and I've never opened the manual of any of the automobiles I've got. It's got a keyhole, and it's got a brake and a steering wheel, and I can drive. The second thing that a lot of men have the attitude of is we don't have to stop and ask for directions. Now, it's a little different today with GPS, and they'll take you wherever you want to go, but it used to drive some of the women that traveled with me on our speaking tours absolutely crazy, and that I would not stop and try to find an address by going into a filling station and say, how do I find this place? I'd rather drive around and look for it for a half an hour. And that's not very practical, but that's part of my personality, of who I was, and very similar with other men. And by the way, I've never met a man in my life that didn't think he was a better than average driver. Isn't that true? Every one of them thinks they're in the top 10% of drivers in the world. So, put this in perspective. I'm a professional photographer. I'm very well published, and enjoy photography as a hobby, and decided I wanted a new camera. So I went and down to the shop, and I was going to buy this Mark V D something or other, and I looked at it and finally decided on the right one, and said I want a telephoto lens, I want a wide-angle lens, and I want this, I want that. And I get my order put together, and I said, okay, I'll take 2 of them, 2 of everything. And the guy said, 2 of everything? And I said, yeah, I'll gift wrap 1 set. And so came to the office, and one of my women vice presidents that was interested in photography, and she had been traveling quite a bit with me on speaking tour, and I dropped her present off to her. And she said, what's this? And I said, well, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate everything you do for us and the company, and this is just a little bonus from me. Thank you. And she opens it, and she's absolutely delighted. And so I said, by the way, see you Sunday out at the airport. We're heading to D.C. and doing a 5-city tour that week. And so we meet out at the airport and get on the plane. Now, she's got this oversized bag that women carry around, and I didn't have anything with me, just a magazine, and we sat down, I ordered a cocktail, and she's sitting next to me, and she pulls her camera and her manual and a yellow highlighter out. She starts studying this camera, and she just looks and plays with it all the way to Washington, D.C., which is about a 3-hour flight. And then every day we moved to another city. And so we went to Boston and went to Philadelphia and then went to Chicago and then went to Kansas City. And the last day we were flying back to Denver. And each time she got on the airplane, I had my cocktails, my magazine, she's studying her book. So on the return trip, I sat and looked at her and I said, "Tell me how your camera works." And she gave me a private tutorial for 2 hours. So I still have never opened the manual of my camera. That might sound really goofy to you, but it's the ease of somebody who knows something that you can ask instead of having to learn it yourself. And so if you have somebody that's fighting an appraisal, your door is open. It's easy for them to walk across the hall and say, "Boss, I'm having a fit getting this damn appraisal. I'm going to lose this deal. What do I do?" Because most of you will be about 10 to 15 years more experienced than the agents that work for you. And so the ease of walking across the hall of saying, "How do I get this person qualified?" Or "I've got a really shaky credit on this individual. What bank should I use?" It is the ease of coming to the expert and being taught in 5 or 10 minutes rather than the effort of going and taking a 3-day course. It's a proven fact that people get about 95% of your personality and your knowledge from mimicking other people. Does not come from grade school, high school, or college. It mostly comes from mimicking. If a baby is born and the mother holds it and smiles, the baby learns to mimic the mother's smile. It's that simple. It starts at birth. And if the baby is not mimicking the smile at 30 or 60 days, that's a sure sign of autism. There's something wrong here. But you start to mimic. And up until you're about 6 or 7 years old, you mimic your parents. You want to grow up to be just like mom. You want to grow up to be just like dad. And then as you get into your school age, you start mimicking the other idiots in school with you. And then you become a teenager, and then it really gets bad. And you mimic the way they dress, you mimic their attitude, you mimic the language. If you're with a crowd that smokes cigarettes when they're 17 years old, you'll smoke cigarettes. If you're with a crowd that drinks, you're going to be drinking. And you'll mimic right up through the rest of your life. Your agents will mimic everything you do. Boss watching never stops. It never stops. I could never get away today with the crap that I pulled at age 25 or 27. We were rebels, we were young, we were wild, the industry hated us, and so we played up to that. As you become more mature and you get to be where I'm at in my life, I'm kind of an industry spokesman now. I have to behave entirely different than I did. But the way you dress is the way your agents are going to dress. The way you behave, your work ethic, is going to be the way that the agents will start to mimic. So if you're in Chicago, high probability as a man, you're going to wear a coat and tie. It's the way it works in Chicago. If you're in Scottsdale as a man, you'll probably wear slacks and a shirt and almost never put a jacket on. It's way too hot in the summer. And that's just the way people work in Scottsdale. And so if you come to work at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning as a normal part of your business, your agents will start acting the same way. But if you never come in on a Saturday and Sunday because you're the boss and you don't have to, you'll see all of a sudden they start acting the same way. It's pretty amazing how integral you are to their success, yet they really don't know that. It just is the way it works. And I've had the chance with 7,000 some offices and all the people that I've met in the 45-year career with RE/MAX to see how offices develop. We have two brainstorming groups in the company. One is called PBS, Premier Broker something or other, and to be invited into that brainstorming group that meets twice a year, you have to have 150 agents. They average 300 agents. Two of them have 1,500 agents. And so these are very experienced, very successful people. The other group is called Catalyst. And you kind of stay in Catalyst till you get over 100 agents. A lot of markets are small. You're never going to have more than 20 or 30 agents. But those people in both groups are really smart. We hand select them for being leaders on the community, being leaders in RE/MAX, of being progressive, of coming to conventions, learning, teaching, whatever it might be. So a few months ago, Adam and I put together a course called Profitability. And I don't know if anybody in here has been through Profitability. We had a 97% excellent rating from the thousands of people that took it. And it was just trying to talk about this office environment and how to make your company more profitable. And basically, we were trying to teach three things. Darren Hardy is a remarkable personal development expert. Darren started as a real estate agent at age 19 in his father's Century 21 office. He quit his dad the next year and came to a RE/MAX office, and he was our #1 agent at age 20 in California 20-some years ago, in second year in the business. And he went on to buy 2 or 3 cable television channels on personal development, bought Success Magazine. It had gone bankrupt 3 times. He made it into a smashing success. And so he just became an incredibly successful public speaker. I think the best that I've ever heard. We have him in a lot of our programs. And so he's had a big impact on us. So we put this program together, and we actually had his advice on several parts of it. And then the first 2 cities, the first city we gave it to was November, and it was to PBS on one day and 2 days later to Catalyst. And so you talk about talking to your very best brokers you've got, you really got to be on top of your game. And we knew we had a smashing hit when all of them kept saying, this is the best thing we've heard in 30-some years. We show up at, I get a call 5 years ago from a RE/MAX broker, and she said, have you ever been to a Darren Hardy seminar? And I said, know who he is, but I've never been to it. And she said, I paid $15,000 to go to a 3-day brainstorming session, total 28 people, very carefully selected, all entrepreneurs, and it was changed my life forever. You really have to go listen to him. So I called Darren up. You have to be there by invitation, and I told him about the recommendation. I said, look, I'd sure like to come to one of your programs and bring one of my top people with me. And he said, of course you're invited, Dave. And so we went to it. Well, I was in double crutches and in my wheelchair part of the time. And so I took Adam Contos, and I was prepping Adam to become our CEO even 5 years ago. I just knew he was that good. And so the thing that was really funny was for the first seminar we went to, the 3 days, everybody was totally convinced that Adam was my bodyguard, and he really wasn't in business. And it took several seminars for them to understand, no, he's pretty bright, and that he just happened to be big and strong and healthy and so on. So at the first seminar, the 28 of us were sitting around, and Darren said, if you're going to be successful with your business, you have to be able to very succinctly and precisely say exactly what it is you do, and say it in 2 or 3 things or less in a sentence. Can anybody describe what you do in your business? Adam and I put our hands up. He'd been with me for 15 years. And he looked at us, and we said it in tone together. We sell franchises, recruit and retain the agents, and we collect the money. And he says, Brilliant. 3 simple things. You sell franchises, recruit, retain the agents, and collect the money. So that might sound a little commercial to you, a little too capitalistic, but collecting the money, it isn't. If you don't sell franchises, you don't get offices open, and you don't get partners to help you recruit. If you don't recruit and retain the agents, then you don't get market share, and you don't get brand, and you don't get these competitive advantages. And if you don't collect the money, you don't have the money to reinvest in the business to create products and services to make it profitable for people to work for you instead of work for themselves. So if you talk about it as a RE/MAX broker owner, you don't sell franchises, but we put it down to 3 things that you do. Number 1, you recruit agents, period. You don't recruit agents, it doesn't work. Our best offices in our company, you'll hear something called the NPS score. And the NPS is a customer satisfaction survey. And our best offices that are scoring with these 9s and 10s still have an average 10% turnover a year. Our worst offices are at 200 to 300% turnover a year. You'll never stop recruiting. Even if you have a perfect office where the agents love you and love each other, they're going to turn over. They get ill, they retire, they decide to start their own business, they burn out, they start a different business, they get divorced. It is inevitable. It will average in the best office 10%. So if you have 100 agents in your office, you're going to have to recruit 10 a year to stay even. So the first thing you do is you recruit. The second is you retain. And the longer an agent works for you, the higher the profitability your company will have. And so with our PBS group, their average agent has been with them 14 years. They're good managers. They know what they're doing. They have a great environment. It's large offices, lots of activity, lots of spirit in the office. And the third thing you do is you lead or manage for profitability. There's no reason to open an office if you're not going to be profitable. When I started the company, I had no intention of being profitable. I wanted to build a brand and market share and could care less about the money. That's a stupid way to run a business. If you're not making money, you can't live through the lean times. Everybody talks about the discount brokers. They never last. Help You Sell has been around for 50 years and has gone bankrupt 3 out of 4 recessions. If you don't have big enough margins to where you can make money, you're going to destroy the agents because they'll have to quit and leave and start over someplace else. So those are the 3 functions you've got to do. You recruit, you retain, and you lead for profitability or you manage for profitability. So if you take that concept of those 3 things, and you take the first concept, which I talked about, is your priority in your life, your number 1 mission is to create an environment where people can be as successful as they want to be, you win, and your agents win. So when we did this profitability course with PBS and Catalyst, I mentioned to them at the end of the session, I said, by the way, dirty little secret, I can tell you this now because I've got your check. Okay, so you're stuck on a contract with me and you're not going to leave me. It's that simple. Every person in this room, this 2 groups that we talked to, I said, the 5th thing, you are more important than the other 4. And the dirty little secret is you would have been just as successful with Century 21 or Coldwell Banker or as an independent as you are with RE/MAX. You are the cornerstone of your success. It is your drive, your ambition, your service that you give to your agents, your caring attitude. So if I could end with this as a very simple concept. The book was written almost 100 years ago, How to Win Friends and Influence People or whatever it is. Who was it? Yes. So anyway, he has a sentence in this book, And he said, there are two things people cannot give themselves. It's personal attention, appreciation, recognition. Two things you can't give yourself. You can have all the money in the world, have a nice car, nice house, whatever. That the things that people really crave is personal attention, appreciation, recognition, and that's what your job is. Your job is to create this environment and give them those two items that they could not get on their own. And I did a 90-city speaking tour almost 25 years ago with a fellow by the name of Zig Ziglar. That was quite entertaining, to say the least. He was very religious. In the evenings when we were done, he would go to the ice cream shop and I would go to the bar. But we got along famously, and he made a sentence one time that I've never forgotten. And he said, Dave, you can have anything in the world you want if you'll help enough other people get what they want. And so the thing that's interesting is, I have everything in the world I want. I got cars and ranches and airplanes and, I mean, everything you could ever want. Because I helped 100 and some thousand other people get what they wanted. The same thing happens with the RE/MAX broker. And the bigger and the more successful you are, if you're Chuck and Chad Oshner here in Denver, you got 750 agents here, they got 700 and some agents in Oregon. They have everything they want because they got 1,500 agents paying them their living. And the same thing happens with a real estate agent. If you have a real estate agent that can do 50 transactions a year, he's helping those 50 sets of people get what they want. He or she is going to make a very fine living. So if you just take those three little stories and put them together, you don't need to do anything else the rest of the week. You go home. Go home. Open your office, create the environment, give people personal attention and appreciation. They'll stay with you forever. So on my part, everybody that works in this building, we really appreciate you buying a franchise and joining our network. You're getting the advantage of over $25 to $30 billion that we've all spent for advertising. We now spend over $1 billion a year. I can't remember how many millions of people we've helped. I think it's over 30 million houses and families that we have helped in this period of time. So you're picking that up for a pretty cheap price. However, we pick you up. We get your finances, we get your customer base, we get your efforts and your quality service, which makes the rest of the network even more successful. Does that make sense to you? So thanks for buying a franchise. Good luck with your adventure of starting a RE/MAX operation. It will be an adventure. There'll be days you hate yourself. There'll be days that you'll love what you've done. But when it's all said and done, the vast majority of our people give us extremely high marks of saying, we love being in this network. So welcome to Denver. Welcome to RE/MAX. Thank you very much. Thank you.